Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And I want to talk a little bit about smart talent systems. And first, I want to start with why we began using this program. In 2019, the Society for Manufacturing Engineers offered this quote. They said, "Relentless turnover in the manufacturing industry is threatening companies focused on driving productivity and profitability. Finding talent is one of the biggest challenges in the industry. So losing employees, whether entry level or seasoned, significantly compounds the problem." And what we realized is that our traditional methods and systems for developing people aren't working all that well. We've relied on them for decades, and they're just not working as well as we'd like them to work. So 3 years ago, UT Center for Industrial Services launched the Smart Talent Systems in Tennessee to help companies identify ways to stem this relentless turnover of talent. The things that keep us up at night, as we think about the money that we're losing because of turnover, there are two costs involved with this. There's the financial costs, which are involved with when you pay for recruiting and onboarding and the people to train. All of those costs are captured, but then there's also a business cost, loss of productivity, new product options that you can't roll out because you don't have the people. And then, of course, it's hard to do process improvement if you're short of help. So, and it's important for companies to understand the true cost of turnover. And so we put these challenges, these are the most often heard that we run into, and we put them into two buckets. They could be interchanged in some cases, and I'm sure there are others that you might think of. But these are the top 10 or so that we hear all the time. And what I want you to understand is every manufacturer in every sector faces these same challenges. This is the new reality, and it can sometimes make you feel a little bit helpless and frustrated. So, you know, the workforce development system in the state of Tennessee they're hard at work trying to fill this pipeline with talented recruits. You're probably familiar with a lot of these initiatives that are here, and you can help with this and you can get involved with it, influencing what happens with these by giving feedback to the workforce development system and supporting their efforts. But even if they were wildly successful, there would still be a shortage of workers. And so the question then becomes, well, if I can't control these, or I can barely control these, what are the other things that I can't control? And those look like the attitudes of entire generations of workers. You really can't do much about that. If you live in a more rural area and work in a rural area, you can't really do much about the size of the labor share. Other market factors and the pace of technology also play into the things that you really just can't control. So what can you control? Tennessee manufacturers, and especially our HR folks, are trying everything we can think of every day to recruit people. And most of us are relying on the wages and the benefits and tuition reimbursements and the things that everybody, the cards that everybody plays to try and find and train and keep people. But you can control certain things, and you can create within your organization a systems-driven culture that gives you a competitive advantage. You see, the way that you attract, train, and retain people in your organization is actually a connected system, and systems can be improved. Attracting the right talent has a great deal to do with how you retain people, and a robust onboarding effort can impact your performance ultimately. What you do in the training area directly impacts recruitment. So smart talent systems is predicated on a systems thinking approach. It's a holistic way to see the connections within a system. And you see feedback loops, you see both direct and indirect relationships, interactions and influences, and how systems can live within systems. And if we look at it from those perspectives, it allows us to see a more holistic system, and it gives us a way to avoid looking at things from a single perspective. How do smart talent systems approach workforce development? It's based on the idea that culture is the driving element, a culture of learning that values the development of people through these three focused training areas that you see on the screen: job skills, which it's teaching people your unique processes, what you do within your organization to produce the products that you produce accurately, consistently, and effectively. Cognitive learning skills, teaching people how to think and how to solve problems. And of course, continuous improvement. We always, in the manufacturing field especially, we look at continuous improvement all the time. So what are those system connections that I mentioned? Well, if you have a really strong training program and you know what it's capable of, it's well documented and repeatable, it's going to impact your recruiting by helping you to clarify attributes and talents that you need within a certain job family. Instead of looking for years of experience and education, you can look for the types of people who would excel in this particular environment. It also helps you to improve job postings. Most of the time, what we do is we cut and paste the job description and we put it out there for people to see. And many people will look at that and they won't even bother to call you because they self-select out for some reason. And in some cases, it's a recruit that you would really love to have. Your training program can take a certain amount of raw talent and help develop into something that's really valuable for your company. And it might give you the opportunity to expand the recruiting pool so that you can choose from other audiences that are out there and be able to maybe broaden your search a little bit. Likewise, the training program is going to help your onboarding process. One of the things that we hear from manufacturers across the state all the time is, we'll hire somebody and they'll leave at first break or they'll leave at lunch and we never hear from them again. Well, if you can add value on day one by showing them how you're going to invest in their development through things like development pathways and how you're going to help them become a valuable member of the team, you can help cast a vision from day one. It makes it harder for them to walk away for 50 cents an hour more to your competitor because you're creating value on day one. And you have to be able to communicate that value. And a lot of times we don't do well in our onboarding programs because we just don't communicate exactly what it is that we're going to do for our employees. And of course, there's retention. Once you have recruited the right person, you brought the right person on board, now you want to keep them. And we do that through development pathways by giving them a map of how they're going to progress through your organization. And you answer that all important question of what's in it for me. And so you can show them how you're going to invest in their development so that they win at the same time that you win. Follow that with career ladders, showing them that there is a future here and there's a way for them to build a very solid career with your organization. And of course, these drive engagement. This helps your employees to buy into what you're trying to do. And everybody would expect that the training program is going to drive performance management because you should be able to see whether the training is having an impact or not. But I would also suggest that when you bring new hires on, is your training program really able to get them up to proficiency faster? If you're able to take a new hire with minimal amount of skill, train them up in 4 weeks to do a job that's going to give you some positive output and you're reaching your goals for your company, what if you could do it in 2 weeks? Could you get them to proficiency faster and save that much more time and money? They're making a valuable contribution that much more quickly. And a lot of us have issues with an aging workforce. About well over half the manufacturing talent in the state of Tennessee is either currently eligible or will soon be eligible for retirement. Well, a good training program should help you to effectively transfer knowledge from that older generation who are about to get ready to go play golf or go fishing or play with the grandkids, whatever they're going to do, into that newer generation, that younger generation that's going to come behind them. So Smart Talent System looks at all of these connections to try and identify improvement possibilities amongst those 5 areas that can give you that competitive advantage. When you look at Smart Talent Systems, one part that we really like about it is that it's scalable and it's customizable. It will fit any organization. at any size, because it's not a one size fits all. But it is not a magic bullet either. Every manufacturer finds themselves somewhere on this continuum, either at the low end with no training and poor culture, or on the high end where you have a rich culture with great training programs. Well, if you think about the idea of continuous improvement, then we should be able to say, no matter where we fall on this continuum, that there's room for us to get better. There's nothing generic about this approach. The Smart Talent System takes a look at the workforce development effort in every manufacturer's location and applies the continuous improvement process and the tools to make that system work better. You know, what is the bottom line behind this? You can increase the profit for your company in these ways by lowering operating costs and driving growth. Just a little bit of history behind this program. Our sister MVP in Oregon, just over about 7 years ago, really began to put this system together and operationalize it. And about 3 years ago, 5 states, including Tennessee, began to scale it up across the country. And what we particularly find interesting about it, what we appreciate, is it uses tools that are proven. It's tools that have been with us for a very long time. And it takes a systems thinking approach to the people development efforts that a company puts forward. And it builds only what the company needs to match its unique circumstances. It can improve your company's ability to increase productivity, reduce employee turnover, increase your ability to leverage new technology, grow your employees to meet new responsibilities, and increase job satisfaction, morale, and motivation for your employees. So this process, the Smart Talent Systems is the process you use to build your internal people development system. It is your Smart Talent System. It's not like anybody else. All of the parts of this system influence and impact the others. Looking at the whole system enables you to make better choices and make more impactful improvements. Think of this as process improvement or continuous improvement for your workforce development system. You have to look for incremental improvement sometimes, and you have to look for multiple ways to make them happen. So to support this, what we do is we offer a 4-workshop training process. And the first one starts out with an introduction, and it's really focused on how do you build an irresistible place to work through a cohesive and holistic process of attracting, training, and engaging your people. So that's a lot to say. For the first day that we get together, we'll talk about things like how the system builds relevant systems to attract, train, and engage people, understand the on-the-job training model, and use the tools and templates that are available. Then we'll go into trying to understand how adult learning principles apply in OJT. People learn differently. So there's visual side, there's auditory, there's tactical or kinesthetic, and there are other ways that people learn. And the tools that we use involve all of those so that you can be sure that you're getting the message across to your new hires. And then describe the steps to effectively deliver and measure the effectiveness of the training program. It's great to have a really useful training process, but it has to be delivered well. So we work a lot with train the trainers and how do we make sure that what we put in place is actually being delivered well. Then in the second workshop, we'll talk about attracting and onboarding new talent. How do we look at other labor pools? How do you maximize the development of all your employees with those development pathways I talked about? And in that session, we'll talk about coaching and training and optimizing the training process after they've learned the technical skills, and then increasing your labor pool by tapping into those underserved populations and leveraging things like referral programs from the folks who already work with you. We'll look at optimizing the onboarding process. How do we do a better job with that? We differentiate between the onboarding process and orientation. Those two things are not the same. And so we talk a lot about how to make the onboarding process stronger. Understand how to build development pathways. What does it look like to put that pathway together? And then a simple thing like creating a better job posting. Right now we have 4 or 5 generations in some cases working within the same facility. And they all speak a little bit different language. We think we're communicating with them in many instances, and sometimes we're not. The older Gen X folks and the baby boomers don't communicate in the exact same way as the Gen Zs and millennials. So how do we communicate with them? Where do we communicate with them? What do we say? And that comes across in the way that you post the job. You want to make sure you're drawing in the right talent. On workshop 3, we start linking the career ladders and compensation performance management strategies that will maximize employee contribution and reward performance. And that covers things like, well, how do we map the linkage between career ladders and development pathways? Developing an objective compensation strategy that will keep people engaged. The influences of leadership on your workforce development system. This is important because even though sometimes your frontline people and your supervisors on the floor don't recognize that they play a really key role in whether or not your people development systems are functioning well and being effective. And so we talked about the influences of their level of leadership on how that system is functioning. And then the integration or creation of the performance management process using the Smart Talent Systems principles. And then on the final one, we'll look at building leadership skills. Once you identify where your leaders are, what we need to do to get them a little bit stronger. Continuous improvement is vitally important. We have some very special tools for that, for the kata and lean and other things that we talked through. And in developing a workplace environment where everyone plays a proactive role in improving the company, it's important to have all of the people on the floor looking for opportunities to improve, looking for solutions to wicked problems, and helping to bring really good innovative ideas to the forefront. Ultimately, driving engagement. You know, the market is such that you can't afford to keep losing talent, and there's a lot of competition for good talent. So you grow your own talent and keep them engaged so that you get the return on investment. Ultimately, in the 4th workshop, what we'll do is we'll tie all of it together, making the connections across the systems and clarifying what it means to optimize each of those connections. So if you're interested in the 4 workshops, let us know. We've got some that are available in person. You can schedule some directly with your organization, or we can do some virtually. And if you have questions on anything, willing to spend a few minutes to take some of those questions. So thank you for your time.